Hey Gareth, how are you?
Doing very well. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. So we're here to do another episode, Gareth, and today's topic is going to be vision. So the reason I'm thinking of doing the vision one is because just this week, no, sorry, last week, Friday last week, I was speaking to a client and they're going through a whole new, um, I won't say rebranding, but just new energy in the business because this client of mine has recently taken over the business. So there were two partners, and one of them has left the business. Well, got bought out of the business. So now it's just
Right.
this one client of mine, and this client is looking to just shake things up, change things around the business. And last episode we did was on organizational change, and this kind of almost fits into it as well, because for this founder, it is, almost rebuilding the agency from scratch. And part of that, which, we talked about, myself and this client, is around setting the vision, because what the vision was before, when it was the two of them, is something different to what this founder has in mind for the future. So yeah, let's talk about vision if you're up for it.
Definitely, yeah. So it's a good one. It's good. I think that there's a live example for you of with one of your clients why it's important, and that the sort of buyout or a change of ownership or whatever has occurred. So that's obviously very important and a catalyst for this sort of stuff. But we've just been talking that we are in December 2025 currently, and I think it's something that not everybody, I'm sure, will want to jump on in the first week of January when they're back, because there'll be other stuff to do. But I find this sort of stuff, is good to have in our thoughts for January if we need to do some work on it, because that's a good time to say, right, in January, maybe not the very first day back, but certainly in the first couple of weeks back, we'll pick this stuff up, because the start of a calendar year is often a good point of reflection, isn't it, to say, yeah, the vision, we need to either refresh or create that vision or write it down. We've got something in our mind, but we need to write it down and communicate it to everybody so that we can go into 2026 with that new energy, new focus.
Yeah. So as I like to do, let's start from the basics, start from the foundation by defining the term vision.
Yeah.
The word gets used a lot. Agency founders or just general business owners always talk about the vision of the business and, this is our vision, this is who we are, all of this sort of stuff. Let's start by describing or defining vision. What is your take on vision?
Yeah, I think I'll give you my take certainly, but I'd be interested. Maybe you and I won't particularly agree on this, because you're absolutely spot on. These words, vision, and like positioning, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
These words are used in different ways by different people, aren't they? Different definitions. If you Google or ask a chatbot about vision, you'll get different answers. You'll get different takes on what this means in businesses. So for me, the vision is always about what you want to become. So what you aspire, what you would like the business to become in the long-term future. So your long-term goal for the agency's direction. But that's my interpretation of it. I'd be interested to see whether you agree. So that vision is the long-term goal. It's what we aspire to become. But interestingly, when people I talk to hear that, or when I'm talking to people about that, the default position for many is often to say, well, what do we want to become? We want to become a statistic on the M&A, mergers and acquisitions round, to say that we've sold in the future our agency and we've made £1 million or 10 million quid or whatever it is, and we've exited. That's our vision, Gareth. And of course, I always say, well, it might be an objective and a valid one for you as a shareholder, as an owner of the business, but I always think that the vision has got to be expressed in a way that it's something that we want the agency to become in the future, that we can share, certainly internally, not necessarily externally, but certainly we can share it with the team. And also it means something to the team as well. So the vision can't really be, we'll sell in 3 years' time and all take £2.5 million each and disappear to wherever. You might have that as an objective and that might be a strategy and an objective for you as a shareholder, but you can't have that as a vision, because what the vision for me needs to do, it helps to galvanize the team, the employees, the staff, the people that work with you and for you in the business. And unless they're a shareholder, people aren't generally interested and might be even quite disrupted by any thought of a sale and stuff. So the vision needs to be something that is more meaningful in that sense. Is that how you would see it, or do you see it differently?
I see it exactly the same way. The vision is the future. Where do we want to be? Who do we want to be as a business? That whole thing, I'm sure I've said it on one of our episodes before, the starting with why,
Yeah,
that plays into the vision, in my opinion.
yeah,
Why are we doing what we do as a business, right? Because that drives who we want to become. Ultimately, any founder that starts a business has an idea of what they think that business, where they want to take that business to, how they want people to see the business in the future. All of that to me feeds into the vision of the business. The other thing I was going to raise or ask you is, every time someone says vision, the next thing that comes up is mission. And I think a few people that don't really understand it kind of use them interchangeably, but they're two different things, aren't they? So if when we're
yeah,
talking about vision, which we described as the future, the ambition of the business, not just the founder personally, but the business as a whole, what would mission be then?
yeah. That's really true. The people do interchange those words, or sometimes use one or the other. Not necessarily to focus on one or the other. But I think that they are different things, and I think it's important to have two. Actually, you'll know this, but I've in my book that I wrote, Stand Out or Die, for agencies, there's a section on what I call the strategic compass, and it's 4 elements. It's values, which certainly most agencies, lots of businesses have somewhere in a dusty drawer their list of values that they have in the business. Most people have those, but that's element number 1. There's values, purpose, vision, and mission. I keep the 4 separate. So we talked about vision in terms of what you want to become. Mission is, for me, how you achieve the vision. So how we sort of define our daily impact.
Yeah.
And it's not a business plan in terms of how we achieve, but it's if we've got a vision to become X, well, this is how we achieve it by doing Y. And so the mission is a not short term, but shorter term concept than the vision. The vision is way down the road, what we aspire to become, an end sort of goal. The mission is sort of how we will achieve our vision and how we sort of define our daily work, how the work that we do will achieve the vision, really.
Yeah. This is why I love talking to you, Gareth, because you always throw something else into the mix. You always throw a curveball because you added one more thing to that list that I hadn't even talked about, which is the purpose that you said, right? Fill us in on how the purpose then fits into these two things we talked about, vision and mission.
Yeah, sure. People have the ability to disagree with this or have a different take on it, but I've got the 4 things, and I think that they're all important, and they all sort of build into this compass. So values, very important. What are the values? What we stand for? What are the sort of core principles guiding our culture and behaviour? And just to sort of expand on that a little bit, as I've said, agencies have values, but they're just words. They might live them as the days and weeks pass, but they don't actually focus on them. They're just on the website somewhere, or on a wall in the boardroom, maybe in the meeting room if they've got one. And often, most of the team can't, even the directors can't probably recite them. I'm not talking about reciting them verbatim, but they can't list what they are because they forget. But they need to be lived, the values, and they need to mean something. But it's the values are what you stand for. That's the sort of anchor point of this strategic compass. And the purpose comes after the values, actually. I see the purpose as something that this is why we exist beyond making money. So the purpose is really what drives us. The values are what we stand for, but the purpose is really what what drives us, and what's some examples of that in an agency context? Some people, for some agencies, should I say, their purpose is creativity. That's their North Star. That they're doing beautiful, creative design work is something that's what they that's why they exist. That's why they set up the business. Usually the founder is was a designer, and that's why they started their career. They trained it at college or whatever it was, and that's what really sort of powers their day and their work, because they're absolutely focused on design. Other agencies are, if they're not design agencies, aren't powered by that purpose. They might be very technically driven. They might be an agency that has a desire to always push the boundaries of technology. And so throughout the last 10, 15 years, or however this agency has, however long the agency has existed, they have always tried to embrace the latest technology. They've gone from sort of early website development through, all sorts of iterations of the different CMSs that have come along, into sort of Web3 stuff, and into, of course, AI now, and headless website development and all that sort of stuff. That's their purpose. That's why they exist, to always sort of use the latest technology. In my own agency, back in the day, our sort of purpose, actually, what really drove us, and this is the top down, this is the directors, was client service, actually. The two shareholders, one of them being myself, we were ex-account management people. We weren't creatives. We ran a creative anchored business, but we weren't creatives ourselves. We weren't particularly technical. So we were always fueled by that desire to give the best client service. So that was sort of sat behind our purpose. And it was really powerful, that's what made the agency live and breathe, really. But there were many other times, just using 2 or 3 examples there, there are many other things that it might not necessarily be something you might just want in a purpose sense. You might want recognition. You might want to win loads of awards. That might be the driving force. But it's important to have something.
That's brilliant. Saying what you said now, I'm trying to piece it all together. Vision being long-term goals. Who do we want to be in the future? Or where do we want to be in the future?
Yeah.
Purpose is what fuels us. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
So shall I just go through the order?
Yeah, link it all together for us.
We get it together, yeah. So this compass, I think the anchor point is values, so what we stand for. So we've got to know what we stand for, what we, as a business, and again, the values must come from the founders. It must be something ultimately that the founders have a desire to stand for, and not just a list of values that are commonly used, like teamwork, or we often see sort of clever copy, like supposedly clever copy, like no dickheads, don't there's a value. I mean, it used to raise a bit of a smile when I read that, but how many times have I seen that? So the values are the anchor points. The purpose comes next. So it's why you do what you do. As I've said, what really is the motivation behind your business? I've mentioned a few examples. It might be client service, it might be creative. On our courses that we've run over the last couple of years, we've met quite a couple of people that are genuinely driven by CSR and the green agenda, haven't we? People that have set up their agencies one of them I'm thinking of as a web development agency, but he's absolutely focused on green agenda and sustainability and stuff like that. So that could be part of that's why they do what they do to produce digital marketing, but a cause beneath that. So the purpose is sort of what you're fighting for. In this case, in my case, great client service. That's what that's behind a purpose. Or it might be something that you're fighting against. So some agencies, their purpose is, without naming names, is often about being the opposite of what they see as bad agency practice. So what agencies do wrong, or what people don't like or even hate about agencies. So they try to say, we're not like that. That our purpose is to make sure that we're never seen as, we're never seen as an agency that just goes through the motions and just takes the retainers. We always want to go the extra mile or whatever it might be. So the purpose is what drives you. Purpose has got to be in the business, but it's not always expressed externally. It's sort of defining the DNA of the business. I had the opportunity to join a workshop actually last week with a client of mine that I work with, and one of my clients brought in a strategy director that has worked in Kev Chester's, worked in a lot of big London agencies. He works on his own as a consultant, and he has this workshop around gangs that is designed to help you form and improve your agency culture. And he has 10 attributes of gangs that make gangs successful. So it's what you can learn from gangs that you can apply to a business. Everybody that much about it, because that would be unfair, and Kev wouldn't be very happy. But one of the attributes is they have a code. They have something that drives them. They have an objective underneath that powers them. A gang. Sometimes those things for a gang the code might be not necessarily appropriate, not necessarily very moral or legally, but sometimes, but often different. I'm talking about gangs in a wider sense, where there's sort of tribes, if you like, as well as not sort of street gangs, but they have a code. There's something drives them. That's what the purpose is. When Kev was talking through that code attribute, I was thinking, that's what I would say is my sort of interpretation of purpose. So there's the values that often influence the purpose, I think. But not everybody has one. Not everybody, and some people sort of don't use that at all. Some people merge it with mission. But I think the purpose is really important. So values, purpose. Then I think it's actually the mission. I think that should come next. That's the long-term goal. So we know what we stand for in values. We know what drives the engine, as it were. But where do we want to actually go? What's the long-term goal?
So you mean vision, not mission?
Vision, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say vision is step 3 in terms of defining these things.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of an unusual take, but I stick by that. So values, purpose, vision. An agency might have a purpose around championing B2B brands, B2B companies, B2B brands have often been seen as the sort of poor relation to business to consumer work. I think that's changed a lot recently, but certainly in the past it was B2B was seen as a little bit less interesting, less creative. So somebody might have a purpose as an agency somewhere to champion the B2B brands, to make sure that the work that they do for them is as bold and brilliant and creative as people doing work for B2C brands. So that's the purpose. But the vision, they might say, they want to be the leading B2B marketing agency in a certain B2B sector.
Yeah.
Whatever that sector is. So that's the vision. And then after the vision comes, of course, the mission. Or I would say comes, of course, the mission. So that's when we've got the vision. So the mission defines sort of how we deliver on a daily basis in order to, how we get there, how we get to our vision.
Right.
I've often sort of used that sort of analogy of a road trip.
Yeah.
Going on a road trip, the values at the start, they're the sort of the vehicle you choose to travel in. You might choose to travel in something very fast and aggressive, and that's something that particularly stands out. A car, a sort of supercar or something. Or you might choose to travel in a bus with a load of other people, and you get there slower, and it's not as fast, and the actual vehicle itself is not as good. But you travel with not just 2 people in a sports car; you travel with a load of people, and that's sort of what your values are about. So the values of the vehicle. The purpose is why you're going, really. What's the reason for this trip? What's the end? Not the end goal, but what's the reason for it? Are you going for pleasure? Are you going for business? Are you going to travel on this trip to achieve something, to rescue somebody? What's the sort of purpose underneath this trip in the background? The vision, of course, is the destination, so the place you're actually aiming for. And then the mission finally is the route. So it's how we're going to get there. So again, not a business plan, just we're going to get there by traveling in our bus and stopping off at 3 or 4 different places every day to make sure that everybody's happy and has something to eat. And we're going to get there over the course of 3 weeks, wherever we're going. And that's what sort of That's our mission, to make sure we achieve 100 kilometers a day, every single day for 3 weeks. That's the sort of a way of visualizing, if you like, the values, purpose, vision, and mission in that sort of order.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, Gareth. Thanks for that. Because I think anyone listening to that will just, that puts it into perspective. You can visualize what you're talking about from just that analogy there. So that's
Yeah.
brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully. If they haven't already switched off thinking,
I know, I'm sure they're there taking notes. They're definitely taking notes. So
yeah,
why is all this stuff important, right? Because I'm sure there are people listening to this that will think, I've had this business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is. I've never had a vision. I don't, like you said, Gareth, some of the people that work in businesses, even if they have visions or missions, the people in the business can't recite them. They don't know what it is. So how important really is all this stuff to a business?
that's a great question. Sometimes I'm sure a lot of people think that we're all very busy in agencies, doing a million things, responding to clients' requests, and many other things. And this sort of stuff, vision, mission, purpose, values, often sounds like sort of maybe corporate speak, doesn't it? Really, for big businesses, for maybe a little bit. Sometimes I would admit sometimes it maybe sounds a little bit sort of too traditional, really, not a particularly modern take. A bit sort of textbooky, if you like. But I think it's really important. What's it for? I think the main reason is to align the business, to align the team in the business. And as you said, last week we talked about organizational change and talked about how agencies, in our case, but any business goes through that sort of change as time moves on. You grow and maybe contract a little bit and go through what the structure of the business changes. And that, as we talked about last week, creates disruption, doesn't it? It creates angst in the business. It creates problems and culturally and specific problems, but also just generally culturally, it creates problems for the owner, the founders. So I always think this vision, mission, purpose, value stuff, I called it the strategic compass in my book, really. It keeps you on the path.
Mhm.
It reminds you, once you've got it down, it should remind you and guide you through the tough times, through the organizational change, through the difficult times, also keep you focused on what you're trying to achieve. So I think it's important for the senior team to do that. But if you can get this stuff right and get it in, and not only specify and define your values, purpose, vision, mission, but also importantly communicate it to the team and however number of people you've got, and communicate it again and communicate it again and communicate it again, because once, twice, 3 times, 4 times is never enough. I'm not saying you should be talking about this every day, every week, but you can't just present it once and then forget about it, because people will not take it all in and they will forget about it. But if you can present it to the team and get them engaged with it and get them understanding it and what it means, then it's really powerful stuff to keep your business and your culture in particular flowing, and keep a positive culture and keep a culture that continues to grow with your business, keeps people, not just the culture as a group, but also individuals. Hopefully keeps people aligned with the business, keeps them engaged.
Yeah.
Something that, has always been difficult, that people engagement, but I think something that people engagement gets more and more difficult every year, every month, even in modern times, because people have got lots more opportunities now, and job security, or staying in one job of any sort is not the thing that's done these days for any particular long length of time. People do move around a lot more. So keeping them engaged, retaining people, if you can keep them, not just about the money here, it's not just about the work for clients. We've got our own mission and vision that sort of is guiding us, and it's sort of trying to get people to want to be a part of that stuff, really. But unless you can tell the story, then you don't stand a chance of retaining people, using that story to help you reuse it to retain people.
Yeah. That part you added there about the story, that I think that's really important as well. I have a client and similar kind of thing. They wanted to do a revamp of the business, and literally she started it off with this story of, first of all, just about her. about how, she got to that place and then where she saw the business going, right? Because people need to buy into it. It's not a dictatorship, right? People have to understand the vision in order for them to buy into the mission and kind of help you to, you know, initiate that mission, to actually activate that mission. If they don't buy into it, if they don't believe the story or believe in the vision, then the mission, they're just almost doing it just because it's a job, right? And then the purpose as well, similar kind of thing, right? They have to believe in the whole package, the whole
Yeah.
compass, as you put it, Gareth. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's a good thing. I think for the founders to have that story. But with that, if we're talking about having the story, so are we saying that when a founder needs to put a vision, mission, purpose, values together, do they have to have that from the get-go? Or is it something that develops over time? Or can they just decide at any point to come up with these things? How does one go about drafting a vision in order to be able to know what the mission is and purpose and all that stuff, because purpose just by definition is something that kind of comes from within, right? It isn't something that you just pluck from thin air and go, okay, this is my purpose or this is the purpose of the business. So how does it all work?
Yeah, totally. I will try and answer that now, but just to pick up on what you said earlier, that, this thing about keeping people engaged in a business, I think I've said this, you've just said it, Alfie, but I think it's so important just to reiterate it once more, really, because I believe, that engagement with a business, I think it's more important now than ever, because young people
Yeah.
that I see in the workplace now, they're more aware, not necessarily a vision, mission, purpose, and values, and all that. They know what they are, but they're more in need of a vision. They have more of an appetite for it. They have more of an awareness for that sort of stuff than certainly I did when many years ago now when I started out. When I started out in agency, land my first job in agencies, I was just happy to have a job. I was just happy to have a job in an agency and do anything, work all sorts of long hours and all that sort of stuff, because it was just, it was great to have a job in an agency, and still it's great to have a job in an agency, I think, even today, but people need more than that now. And I think so they're not necessarily explicitly going to ask you for this stuff, but they do need and respond well to this stuff if you get it across in the right way. So I just want to say that, but when is the time to do this work? Well, I mean, it would be nice to say, when we set up the agency, the Alfie and Gareth agency next week, and before we do anything else, before we start thinking about clients and all that, we're going to set up this compass and write all that stuff down. But reality is we wouldn't, and nobody would probably do that. So I don't think it is, as much as it's probably needed at the start, it would be valuable at the start of any agency's, the agency's sort of inception. I don't think anybody would have the time or the inclinations to do it then. And I understand that. So I don't think there's a point. I think once you've been trading for, I'm hesitant to put a time limit on it, but you've been trading, you've got a couple of years under your belt. You've been trading for a while. You're starting to grow. You're starting to employ people or employ more people. That's the catalyst for me when this stuff becomes important. And there's no set date, but there's a time when you say, now I've got X number of employees, and now maybe I see a few things. It's not as easy to communicate with these people. They're remote, or there's too many of them to just sit around a table. We don't have an office, or we do have an office, but getting them together, what do I say to them? All those different scenarios. But I think once you start to get a number of people in your business, that's the time to start to reflect on this stuff and embrace it. And you're absolutely, what you said just now, Alfie, is absolutely spot on. Purpose in particular should be inherently there. That's why we've got to this stage. There's something driving us, because we've got to this stage in our agency where we're employing 10 people, whatever it might be. So we're something that we are powered by something, but often it's not as explicit or as visible as what you would either like or what you might think. Sometimes we need to do a lot of soul searching to say, well, what actually is it that really drives us? What are our values? Genuinely, not just pulling together a list of the common ones. But what really is important to us in our business, to me as a founder, what do I want people to, absolutely die a death on in terms of a value? And even if it means, upsetting a client or something, it's no creative work leaves this business without, a creative director seeing it. That wouldn't be a value in itself, but it would be a value around creative excellence or something. It would be something around creative excellence. So you start to sort of uncover some of those things, but then the vision and the mission they will need a bit more thinking about, probably. And well, we've started this business, it's been successful, got it to 10 people, 15 people, 12 people, whatever the number is. Now we need to sort of really look and redefine our values and define the purpose and uncover that. And vision, where are we going? Well, we don't want to do this forever. We want, as shareholders, we want to maybe exit at some point, or maybe we do. Maybe we are happy we just enjoy running the business. We're going to carry on, but we need something as a goal to sort of say, this is what we want to be, and put that in place, and then put the mission in place. So I'm sorry if that's quite woolly, but there's not a day, there's not a time. It's certainly not the start. That's probably impractical. That's impractical.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you start it, not that you would, but when you're starting to think, if we got a minibus here, a minibus for our business, it starts to become needed if we wanted to travel around. And that's the sort of numbers of people that, where we start to need these tools, really, to help us run the business, and also help, as we've talked about, engage those people in that bus, keep them on the bus.
Not even the vision. You don't think the vision you would need to have at conception, because when you think about the vision, someone starts a business right now, and first thing, at least I'm thinking from people I work with, or me personally, one of the first things is entrepreneurs tend to think big. So usually, you start something and you just go, I'd love to be such a, like the example you gave, I want to be known to be the best creative in Europe or wherever it is, that sort of stuff. It may not be written down, but at conception, isn't there an element of knowing, right, where you want to be, where you want this business to be or to go in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years or whatever?
Yeah, I understand. Well, can I be controversial
Yeah,
here?
please. Yeah, yeah.
I understand why you say that, and if that is the case, but somebody that you're working with, and somebody that or people that we know, or wonderful. And I would, I'm not trying to stop that, but the controversial bit is, for most agencies, I think that they're usually accidental entrepreneurs. They're not like a product business where we, again, you and I sort of say, hey, I've seen a gap in the market for yet another brand of coffee that Alfie and Gareth should exploit, and we know where to buy it, we know how to refine it or blend it or whatever they do with it, and our vision is that this coffee is going to be bigger than Kenco. But yes, often when you've got that sort of product investment, but most agencies aren't that. They sort of evolve, they grow with purpose, or not with the purpose, but they grow purposely, and rightly so. But they don't grow with a real objective. Generally, I don't think. I think people become agency owners. They don't set out to be agency owners generally, and that's why often the need is sort of a little bit delayed. I think there are exceptions to that, of course, and I might be wrong, but I see a lot of that. There are exceptions to that. People that arguably, even myself, I bought my agency in a management buyout from somebody else, as you said right at the top. One of your clients has done recently, or has certainly bought her other shareholders out. Therefore, there's it's already an established business, or somebody might be sat there right now listening to this thinking, I'm about to launch my agency, and before I do, I've got to have a vision. I'm sure that'll be the case, but generally people sort of start sort of accidental entrepreneurship rather than true entrepreneurs that have more in product businesses or more in other businesses where they have to have a business plan. They need investment. They need angel investment at the very least to get started. They have to go to somebody and say, can I have some money because I'm starting this business, and the reason you're going to give me the money is in 5 years' time, this is going to be the best coffee in the world or whatever it is. All right, here's my money. Agencies, again, don't normally have to do that. They're not capital intensive businesses. They start with a laptop and they grow organically. But then when the organic growth happens, I think the danger is that organizational change stuff starts to kick in and things start to get out of control or out of kilter.
Mm-hmm.
This is strategic compass is one of the things that helps founders sort of rein stuff back in a bit, control things a little bit.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that fact that at least at the point when you start to bring people in, you should have it formalized. You should have all those four things formalized. Because I hear a lot,
Yeah.
you mentioned something about, young people now and, the Gen Z individuals. They do actually take this stuff seriously. A lot of people talk about, this big disconnect between Gen Z and, the boomers or agency owners or whatever it is. And I think part of that might be this, right? They go into a business looking for purpose, looking for, something beyond just profitability and all that sort of stuff. And if that isn't documented, if we don't see that, then there is an issue. And then, it turns into friction between them and the business or them and the founders. And there's this misunderstanding that, the Gen Z people are lazy and all of that stuff. Maybe it's just they don't see the purpose, they don't see the vision, so there's nothing to buy into beyond just working and making money.
Yeah, totally. That's a great point. I'm hearing, and you sort of raise a great point, Alfie, in that, maybe my sort of vision, my view of the world there in terms of, the agencies evolving, maybe is changing, maybe will change more in the future. Maybe there'll be more intent at the start of anybody that starts an agency. And as you say, people that join in that business need this stuff. Well, the younger people, as you're talking, I was thinking, you've got a great point, because often people now in agencies that are just starting out and maybe starting to recruit their first, I'll pick dev just for the sake of it. They want to recruit a dev. That agency owner recruiting that dev is competing with other SaaS, not agencies, but other businesses, tech businesses, SaaS businesses that again might be starting out. But if you've got a dev and they're a young person and they're faced with, "Would come and join me in my agency," it's great. Versus come and join me in my SaaS business. Our vision is to develop this SaaS product that is revolutionary and will be bigger, than zero accounting software in 10 years' time. Which am I going to go for? If I'm that dev, I'm probably, I would be this person in this agency. It sounds interesting, but there's no vision versus this stuff over here. So, I still stick by what I said, but I think that you've certainly shone a light on the importance of it maybe earlier. And this is, the sooner the better for me, because I do believe in all this stuff. So if this compass, as I call it, is ingrained from early on, then happy days.
Yeah. Cool. So one last thing to ask you, and this is from your personal experience of running an agency, owning an agency. What happens when you've got people in the business who don't necessarily fit with the values and, the purpose and all of that sort of stuff? How do you go about integrating them into the system and the values and all of that? Because, to your point, if you haven't started that at the beginning, if it came about, when you started to bring people on, there might be some people in the business who wouldn't have joined the business, because at the time there was no real, values and mission and all of that in place. So what do you do then when you start this later and then you've got people there who have been there? Do you ease them into it? Do you move them on and get people in, or how does it work?
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the reasons behind why I always say start with the values and the purpose, because that's the sort of, those are the anchor points. And those are the sort of the ones that you can truly measure whether people are aligned to your values and what drives you. we want them to be on board with the mission, of course, but we want how they align with the values. So to ingrain those values, I'm a big supporter and fan of using them in trying to get them daily involved in the business, the values ingrained in the business, and to the point where, in appraisals and in reviews and things, we use the values as measures. We talk to people. We don't judge people, our staff, but as members of the team, we get them to reflect on whether they live the values or not. And if they don't, in some cases, you know what, that can be all right, because maybe we can use the values to not convert them, but to show them the way in terms of how we want things done and how everybody else is doing things. And it could be a guiding light for them to say, oh, okay, yeah, I need to do that slightly different. I need to, when in that situation, I can use that value. But sometimes, people are misaligned, and we don't all share the same values, of course, and people can be very misaligned. And maybe that's, if we can use them as tools to help bring people together and bring people more, to our way of thinking, if you like. But if that's not working for us and ultimately not working for them, then, that's something where maybe people will either see that and leave, or maybe we need to make that decision ourselves. But I think it'll manifest itself in different ways as well. It won't just be based on how people living the values. There'll be mistakes, there'll be problems, there'll be arguments and things, or friction in the business that we can already see, and that's just the root cause is probably in that.
Amazing. It's been a great conversation, as always, Gareth. What are your final words for the people?
Final words, vision, mission, purpose, values, hugely important, not just textbook stuff. Always an opportunity to reflect on those stuff, that sort of stuff. And reflecting on our conversation, the earlier the better, really. I do think that it often takes some time to truly need that when you start to employ and truly get some value out of those things. And there's other priorities. But when you come to a point where you're employing a team, and to your point, Alfie, these days, the sooner the better, understand this sort of compass principle, and try to start putting your business onto that compass and map it and see where you are and see where the gaps are. You might have the values might be absolutely nailed, but you might be missing a bit of a vision or missing a vision in a way that you can help to engage the team. And therefore that's an opportunity for you to put that in place and help motivate people and bring the business together and use it as that sort of guiding light that is going to help through this, as we've talked about, this organizational change that inevitably will happen with growth and with time.
Yeah. Amazing. So for me, I'll say, values, mission, purpose, vision, all very important, and, like you said, the sooner you get it, the better, get it in and documented and get everyone on board with it, the better. And
Yeah.
I think that it will drive everything, especially the mission part of it. The vision, obviously long-term, mission, the day-to-day, how you do things will be inspired by the vision and the purpose. And everybody has to live the values, right, for it to work. So that all works. But I think key thing is anyone listening, go get Gareth's book, because it's clearly detailed in there, more so than we can ever talk about. We don't have enough time to cover all this stuff, but Gareth covers it really well in the book. So Stand Out or Die, go get it.
Perfect. Great plug for the book. Thank you very much. Thanks, Alfie.
Nice one. All right. See you on the next one, Gareth. And thanks again.
See you soon.
Yeah.